Hi, StartupSauce community. We're here to talk about how to lower customer acquisition costs for your SaaS. And if you are tuning into this episode, I guess you've noticed that things are changing. They've been changing for a while, but they're certainly starting to change more rapidly. And for those of you that aren't across it, hopefully we will shine a bit of a light on it, and then we'll talk about what we can do. Okay, so what you'll learn in this talk, by the end of this talk, you're going to learn about what is happening with customer acquisition costs, or CAC, what the underlying issues are, why it's happening, and what you can do about it. And there's actually quite a lot of opportunities to deal with it. So the agenda for today is, obviously, CAC is affecting most brands. It's not just a SaaS thing. It's not just what's happening to you. It's really right across a whole range of industries. We're going to talk about what's going on with pay-per-click ads specifically, because there are things that are going on or have been going on for a while, but some dramatic events are coming. So we're going to really peel back the layers of the onion a little bit there. We're also going to look at some of the other reasons that are going on. We're going to talk about diversifying your marketing to high ROI marketing tactics, such as referral marketing, and not just about partnership marketing, because that's already in some parts of SaaS is a pretty big thing. But we're going to talk about using partnership marketing as a multiplier. And then we're going to discuss, some of the learnings and come to a conclusion. So a little bit about me. So my name is Sven Radavics. I joined my first startup accidentally as an early employee with a company called WatchGuard Technologies in 1998. It was a Seattle-based computer security company. I thought I was joining as a systems engineer. Turns out I was joining as a sales engineer. And that was actually really a horrifying awareness, because I'm a fan of salespeople, but either generating revenue or growing revenue or being responsible for it ever since. I've been lucky enough to sell hardware, both consumer technologies, software, and SaaS, both through direct channels and indirect channels through channel partners. And one of the things that we will spend a little bit of time talking on is some of the things that we can do with partnerships. I've got a long background with partnerships. I've been lucky enough to work with brands like Ducati and Red Bull, and then a range of other big consumer brands, and literally hundreds of SaaS companies. So one of the things that I thought I would do, I was reading about the StartupSauce community, and Sunny has been great in really filling me in about some of the amazing things that are going on. And clearly there's a range. And obviously, what works for one SaaS doesn't necessarily work for another SaaS. The SaaS founders in this community have a minimum MRR of $5,000, but some are $1 million ARR and upwards. And just from an MRR perspective, the problems that you're facing or the way you might deal with CAC, can be quite different. So I'm not going to be out there selling a one size fits all. B2C SaaS, B2B SaaS are different, but hopefully, out of the range of things that we talk about, there are some things that the different founders of different types of SaaS companies can take away with them. So, the problem, as really the title of this session it really covers, is that CAC for most companies is rising, and in many cases, it's actually rising a lot. I first really started seeing pain amongst founders, amongst my Twitter founder friends. People started talking about it. They were talking about their paid ads. not performing like they used to. Costs were going up, ROI was going down, and really it just started with groups of founders, just checking in with each other and trying to understand what's going on. And I started getting involved with these conversations, and really looking at what's new, what's changing, and one truth is that it's been happening for quite a long time, and in many ways, it's almost like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's been small changes that have been happening from time, over a period of time that cumulatively make a big difference. And some of the recent rises are more dramatic, and so let's have a look at some of those. Before we dive into that, though, this is a chart that was actually created in 2019, so 4 years ago, and it works across the years prior to 2019. And what we can see is, although for a lot of people it feels very dramatic at the moment, this is not a new thing, and some of that has to do with simply things like the amount of people involved, the amount of SaaS companies that are around today compared to the amount of SaaS companies in 2015. Just the amount of content creators, or the amount of consumer businesses. Everybody's fighting for attention, and although the Earth's population is growing and the internet population is growing, but it's not growing very quickly anymore. And so as things started stagnating, yet it became easier to launch new businesses and to market those businesses, obviously these things started to take a toll, and in some cases either saturated the market, or you just found that you're competing against more players. So we can break it down into a number of things, but one of the simple things is that with pay-per-click, there are simply more advertisers out there. There's more competition for the words. And in the early days, obviously that we've always had, since the birth of the internet, a growing sense of more advertisers, more competition. But it was either in the beginning, it was surpassed by the growth in the number of users of the internet. And so although, you had more competition and competition was growing, the actual people buying things on the internet or searching for things on the internet was growing at a much faster rate. But if we just take the search term best, which, is a common shopping term, whether it's best, best social media management software, or best bicycle, or best SEO software, or best accounting software, whatever it is, you can just have a look at best and see that the interest over time is very flat. Not much is really changing there over a period of time, and it's been like that for a couple of years. Yet there are much more people competing for the search term best with their advertising than ever before. Secondly, one of the bigger problems that's going on is, not only are you having more competition within a channel, you need to deal with more channels. So all these channels are competing against each other. And if you go back to the birth of social media, there was Facebook, and then came Twitter. And then eventually came Instagram and a lot of the others. And actually, if we go back to the beginning, of course, there was MySpace. And now there's dozens of major players, and there's new players evolving all the time. You're getting more fragmentation going on with Twitter. Once there was one micro-blogging service called Twitter, and now you have a whole bunch of emerging competitors that are trying to take advantage of the situation with Twitter. So you just, not only do you have more competition within your channels that you've been using for a while, but you're battling for a much smaller slice of attention span. And then things, just get really tricky when it comes to actually getting your ads in front of people. The statistics for ad blockers today are pretty incredible. In the US now, 50% of mobile phone users have ad blockers installed on their mobile phones in the US. So ad blockers used to be a thing that privacy geeks did, or a very small percentage of the population. Traditionally, it was only on desktop, but now it's migrating to mobile phones. Also, there are now a whole lot of privacy-aware browsers. Brave, I'm a user of Brave myself, and every day I go out and I talk to people about things. I find more and more of my friends, without me, trying to convince them that they should use a product like Brave. I discovered that they've got Brave or Brave installed on the phone. So things like Google Tag Manager are blocked by default. So if you have tracking software and Tag Manager, or some sort of tags that help you with your pay-per-click advertising and trying to get information about people that visit your website, all of that has been going away. And so bit by bit, death by 1,000 paper cuts, just small changes in percentage of ad blocker users or users of privacy browsers. And then comes, Apple comes along with iOS 14, and really starts to shake things up. The first time, and at the time, the world didn't realize Facebook had bigger problems like we do now. But the first time Facebook actually missed their revenue numbers and went backwards, they came out, and I think Zuckerberg blamed Apple and iOS 14 and directly accused them of doing something. But obviously Apple did that, and I believe the statistics are that 75% of people accept the defaults and choosing not to be tracked. And only 25% are going with the non-default option and allowing tracking. And then, Apple comes along with iOS 15 and doubles down on it. And, they're talking about doing more of this in the future. And outside of some of these smaller technology changes that have been happening over time, that I've been sort of called death by 1,000 paper cuts, until about iOS 14. We have ad blindness. Now, ad blindness, is an extension or a superset of the term banner blindness. Now, banner blindness was coined back in 2013. So, I'm not claiming this is a new thing, but in the early days of ads that were on websites, you would have all these banners all over the place. And obviously in the beginning, they were very effective, which is why everybody used them so aggressively. But over time, people train themselves, not to look at the ads, to zero in on the parts of the website that had the information that they wanted. And so this, it started off slowly and then obviously accelerated over time. But now we have, whole generations of internet users that have grown up from, a very young age of using an iPad or an iPhone and just learning to avoid looking at ads, from very, very early ages. So they're getting very good at it. So ad blindness is a real thing. And, there are tactics to get around it and work around it. But over time, people, just really don't like seeing ads. And that's becoming, quite obvious. And now, we get to some of the bigger issues. And, over time, it's been this, slow progression of chipping away at the ROI and of ads being blocked and browsers automatically blocking things and operating systems blocking things. But Google has come out and said that, and they've said it 3 times now, that they're going to block the third-party tracking cookie, or they're going to deprecate it. And I think the first time might have been in 2020, and I think they said they were going to do it in 2021 or 2022. But in 2021, they came out and said, you know what, the world has enough, or business in the world has enough headwinds. We're not going to do it right now. We're going to delay it. And so they pushed it out, and then they pushed it out again. If we're cynical, we could say that, maybe they're doing this because they don't want to, they cut off their own revenue stream. And obviously they're working on a solution. They're calling it the sandbox solution. But whatever happens, towards, and I think in the back half of 2024, Google will deprecate the third-party tracking cookie in Chrome. And although the browsers like Brave and some of the other privacy browsers have come a long way, and they've slowly been taking market share, Chrome has still more than 62% market share of web browsers. And so when you consider that, that's a pretty radical change next year, and it's something we need to prepare for. And if you think your customer acquisition costs are a gnarly problem to deal with today, wait until all that really amazing tracking goes away, and then what's left and how you're going to deal with it. So we'll talk about that a little more. And ultimately, consumers have started to become more aware of privacy issues. Obviously, it's in the headlines a lot. You have governments going out there and requiring companies behave in a certain way. So in Europe, you've got the GDPR, and so you've got these annoying pop-ups about things. But those pop-ups over time have also been educating the users that tracking is a problem, and the government debate is. And obviously now today we have a debate about the data that TikTok collects. And I'm not sure a lot of the debate is deterring the younger generations from using TikTok, but it is making them over time, seeing it in the news, it is making them more aware of privacy and the issues, and governments, around the world have slowly been banning government employees to have TikTok installed on the government phones, and cumulatively this all adds up. And so consumers are actually changing their behavior in a lot of ways, not just installing ad blockers, but they do their research in different ways. And there's a lot more dark social and people getting information from places like Reddit or some of the other places where traditionally they haven't sought information on buying behavior, for example, or making buying decisions. And the problem isn't just pay-per-click. I spent a lot of time on talking about the pay-per-click and breaking down the different levels, because pay-per-click is a really big part of a lot of startups' marketing spend, particularly startups that raise capital, and the Silicon Valley startups, where a lot of the Silicon Valley VCs, go and meet with the companies they've invested in, tell them they're not growing fast enough. They need to spend more money on pay-per-click advertising, which happens to go to the same companies that these VCs invested in many years earlier. And you've had this really interesting cycle of money going from VC to startup to Facebook, which effectively goes back to the VCs in value. And really the messaging has been, if you want to grow fast, you need to spend a lot on advertising, on pay-per-click advertising, because it's so targeted and it can really accelerate things. So, it's definitely one of the major problems. But it's also things like content. And I think if anybody has been looking at what's been going on just over the last few months with ChatGPT and some of the generative imaging programs that are out there like Midjourney, it's clear that we're at the beginning of an explosion of content creation. But before all of that, we often had periods of time where content on the internet was already growing 300% year on year. And for a while, good content writers were getting more expensive. And so, as a SaaS, you're out there, you've got your pay-per-click campaigns going. And one of the other big things that everybody talks about is content. So you're trying to produce more content. You're trying to keep up with your competitors. So you're producing more content. It needs to be valuable content. So you're hiring writers. Those writers are getting more expensive, and therefore, your customer acquisition cost increases. And so, now there's an explosion in content by AI, and probably everybody listening to this has explored this in some way. I know I use it on a daily basis, not just to write content from end to end, but obviously to try and accelerate the process. And suddenly we're in a situation where content writers are getting cheaper. The best are still holding their ground because high quality, unique, individual content is still valued by the search engines. But overall, what this does to customer acquisition cost, it's not really clear. But if we're trying to stand out in a flood of content, what do we do? So there's a lot of questions about this and what you can do with it and what it means for your customer acquisition costs. But in general, it's going to require a lot more effort, I think. So when we talk about solutions and what we can do about it, and I talk to a lot of other founders that are successfully bringing down their CAC, and keeping your customer has kind of been a truism in business. Ever since I got involved with it, people have understood that it's much easier to keep a customer than to go and find a new one, or it's a lot more cost effective than to keep your customer than to go out and hunt down a new one. And this is just really, although it's been true for a long time, it is more true than ever. So really invest in your customer service, make it a priority. We're going to talk about referral programs in a few slides. And so, from this perspective, keeping a customer happy or making a customer happy, really getting them to love your brand, isn't just about keeping your churn down and keeping the customer. If you can actually turn your customer into an evangelist, you've got a number of things going on. It means that you've kept your customer, so no churn. It means that you start to benefit from word of mouth. So they'll be telling their friends or their colleagues about how good your offering is. And then when you have a referral program where you're incentivizing customers to tell other people about it, they're going to be a lot more enthusiastic about it. So this is where things get a little more interesting, or maybe a little less obvious. But there are marketing tactics that stand out from the rest. And if we go back to the beginning of pay-per-click, and one of the reasons why it's been so hard for people to shift their thinking away from pay-per-click was, in the beginning, it was like magic. Pay-per-click, when I first saw Google AdWords or Facebook advertising and understood, how we can dial in to the ideal customer profile so closely, and then track their behavior all around the internet, and then retarget them. And you could all do this back in the beginning for a cent a click, and it really truly seemed like magic. So you went from a time where marketers all talked about the marketing mix. Back then, the 4 Ps of marketing, price, place, product, and promotion. And promotion is what a lot of non-marketers think marketing is. But pricing is very much a part of marketing. Building the product is a part of marketing. Placement, probably in SaaS, you talk about it not with a P, but under a D. So for distribution, we all know that distribution is key. But there were 4 Ps of marketing, and then promotion was many things. It wasn't just advertising. But when pay-per-click came along, it was so powerful. But a lot of these other things went out the window, and people really focused their efforts on ads. Marketing became very data-driven and very mechanical. Really a lot of the fun went out of marketing. And so, this is why that even though CAC and pay-per-click weren't performing as well as they could have been for quite some time, or as well as they used to, people didn't really notice it at first, or if they noticed, they didn't really believe it, or they didn't take action. It was, oh, this is what we do, this is how we market, and the whole generation of marketers grew up with that. But there are, marketing really, and if you do a traditional marketing degree and they talk about the marketing mix, it's a really important way to think about marketing, particularly as we go into this new era where, pay-per-click is going to change. I'm not saying it's going away, but it is going to dramatically change as we go through into this cookieless world. And so, we want the full mix. We'll need the content. We'll probably still have some pay-per-click. We'll work on brand, in this whole debate about the death of the third-party tracking cookie. Brand Magazine came out with a big headline, brand is back. The big corporates knew it never went away. But for a lot of people, they really didn't focus on brand at all. Even though Google has for a while been saying, actually, brand search is actually an important indicator for a number of things, including value for a website. But once you step back and realize there's all these other things you can do, you can start to pick out what's table stakes. And then, what are some of the high ROI tactics you can use? Because obviously, if you increase your ROI, you're going to get to a stage where you're going to be able to bring down your customer acquisition costs. So, one of the most exciting things, and it doesn't happen very often, but being an early adopter of new platforms can be very powerful. And, if what is going on with Twitter today, if it wasn't going on, I wouldn't even have this as a bullet point, because a new platform comes out fairly rarely. In the beginning, there was MySpace and Facebook and LinkedIn, and Twitter came along, and then things started accelerating a little bit, and new platforms came. But I know people have said this for a while, or there's a couple of quite famous marketers that said when Snapchat came out, you got to go all in on Snapchat, because it's new, and there's a really magical moment in time with a new platform like that. And really, the magic happens because it's where the audience growth outpaces the advertiser growth or the ad spend growth. So when TikTok came along, in the beginning, not a lot of people knew what to do with it, and the advertisers really weren't on there very much. But the few that were getting incredible ROI for their spend, because they had so little competition, and even as the competition started coming in and wanting a part of it, they had to learn and they had to catch up, and then the user growth, just the audience growth, hockey sticked, and for a period of time, those that were early on the platform really got a crazy high ROI. One of my favorite types of marketing that's out there is referral marketing. Now, this isn't always great for early stage SaaS, although, as we know, this community, people are already at $5,000 MRR and moving up. But the thing to note is you can't go very easily from 0 to 1. If you are launching something new, you can use referral marketing tactics to go out there and accelerate, your wait list, for example. And there's a few other places in the 0 to 1 or a few tactics. But overall, if you have an audience, you can use them to grow. And it's something that is incredibly high ROI, and particularly if you go back to what I was saying about customer service. And if you have a happy customer, they're going to be recommending you to other people anyway. We all do this. I would imagine almost everybody listening to this is out there. Would have a recent experience where somebody asked them for advice, or you've had, you just love a product so much, you tell everybody about it. In my case, probably the biggest one was when, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, and a lot of people were asking for recommendations for banks. I was out there telling everybody that I use Mercury and the experience has been amazing. And so, from that perspective, it's actually a natural human thing. If you really like something, you want to tell people about it, particularly if it solves problems. And so with referral marketing, when you do it right, and you're actually incentivizing it, it could be like, the traditional, for SaaS, that's been done a few times is, when a referrer refers a referee and the referee signs up to a paid plan, they both get a month free. It's double-ended. So the referrer gets something out of it, and the person being referred gets something out of it. Can be incredibly powerful. Again, if they are not fans of your product, if they have a really poor customer service experience, it doesn't work. But together, it's super powerful. Partnership marketing, and not to be confused with affiliate marketing. This is something where the conversation has changed a little bit lately. I think there are a number of affiliate platforms out there that are trying to rebrand themselves as partnership platforms. But partnership marketing is an interesting thing that a lot of corporates do. And when you leave the house in the morning, you're probably touching on all sorts of partnership, strategic marketing partnerships from corporates without even realizing it. So, if you go into a Starbucks and you get the Spotify coming over the speakers, that's a marketing partnership. The free Wi-Fi in a Starbucks is a marketing partnership. Starbucks doesn't pay for that. The ISP that's providing the service gets to harvest the email addresses of the Starbucks demographic. And so, they both get something out of it, and it's very high ROI because, there's no real money exchanged here. And, there's a lot of things that you can do. So one of the things, for example, that you can do with partnership marketing is tackle the whole problem with content. If you're working on content just on your own, it's a lot of work. But if you actually partner with other brands that are targeting the same target market as you, those other brands are not competitors of yours, you've got a scenario where you get more content with less work. Event partnerships are really great types of partnerships, particularly for SaaS platforms. The whole webinar thing, I know there's been an expert talk on webinars, and there's a lot of great learnings out of that presentation. But if you think about it now, there's the webinar you do on your own, or if you partner with another brand or two more brands to do the webinar, potentially you've got much more interesting content on the webinar. It's not just one person like me here speaking. You can get different perspectives. And of course, all of the brands that are involved in the webinar, they're actually inviting their own from their own mailing list. So you're getting your brand in front of these other brands as the webinar is being promoted. You're getting your brand in front of other audiences as the webinar is happening. And then, of course, there's the follow-up and the repurposing of the content. So event partnerships are another great type of partnership marketing. And, there's quite a long list. There's 13 different types of partnership marketing. One of them being, a subset is affiliate marketing. And affiliate marketing can be high ROI. I have a lot of friends and know of a lot of SaaS companies that are really struggling with their affiliate marketing. And I'm going to give one, I guess, piece of advice about the affiliate marketing that's a little different from what you might see. So, if you have a very typical sort of mix of affiliates out there, the Pareto principle applies. So you've got the 80-20 rule kicks in. 80% of your affiliates are not delivering much revenue, and 20% are delivering 80% of it. But quite often it's 90-10, not 80-20. And when a SaaS company looks at their affiliate program, they realize it's not working, and they, the advice, if they get a consultant, then quite often the advice will be, well, have a look at your top 2 or 3 affiliates, and cut everybody else, and just find more like these 2 or 3 that are performing really well. And what will happen is, in general, you'll find another 2 or 3 of those, and they'll probably be okay because there are some similarities in their success, but it doesn't really move the needle a lot. And so, in my opinion, there's a much better way to really ramp up your affiliate performance. And it's a little bit like what I said about the customers and customer success or customer support with your affiliates and any type of partner, really. If you make them love you, if you really get them excited about your brand and your product, they're simply across the board going to sell a lot more of your product. And so, you really need to think about it differently and think about how you talk to them, how you communicate with them, how you onboard them, how you structure the program. You really want to stand out from other programs and be different. Make them feel like they're an extension of your brand, that they're really a part of your sales team. And when you do that, you'll probably notice fairly quickly quite a change in behavior. And that's something that I really love talking about, and I've got some great examples. If anybody wants to reach out to me later on to discuss that, my details are on the last slide. But really, it's not the traditional the traditional approach of incentivizing affiliates or just trying to find similar types of companies from the ones that are performing. It works a little bit, but if you really want to fundamentally change the performance across the board, think about how you engage with the affiliates. As we go on, one of the things that's clear, and if we hark back to the death of the third-party tracking cookie, or the impending death of the third-party tracking cookie, one of the things you really want to do is get amazing with your first-party data, first-party or second-party data. So second-party data can come from your partnerships, but your first-party data. When you build that list and you have this audience, again, go out there and take best practices in segmentation and engagement, and really think about them beyond just a list that gets automated drip feeds and whatever else. Think about how you can stand out, and what can you do to surprise and delight. What can you do to really learn about your customers. Again, you guys are probably talking to your customers fairly regularly. But again, think about, can you do it more? Are there other ways to bring them on? Do you have customer advisory boards? Things like that. And then just, one little thing is coming back to, really zig when others zag. And that is, with all this in-your-face digital behavior and all these ads popping up and all the other stuff, and our inboxes are all flooded, our Twitter DMs are full. What can you do that's different? And in a lot of cases, taking it offline can really cut through with the message. In some places, and it really depends again on your industry and where you live, but direct mail, physical snail mail, old school mail, that's personalized and addressed and sometimes delivered with a small gift or something, really can cut through with messaging and get through all the noise. So I spoke a little bit about partnerships before, and partnerships stand on their own. There's a lot of great things you can do with partners: joint physical events, joint webinars, joint content creation. The list goes on. But you can also think about partnerships as a multiplier. So you can think about a lot of your normal content. And I did touch on this a little bit with the webinars, that when you have 2 or 3 brands on a webinar, there is a multiplier effect that's going on with this, because you have the multiple brands promoting the webinar to their audience, and then doing the post webinar promotion, et cetera. But try and take this a little bit further, and I've got a couple of great examples coming up from a SaaS company that I think does it really, really well. But just think of, and this is just one example of a social media giveaway you do yourself. You've got one prize, whatever it's worth, and you've got your existing channels. Now imagine if you do it with 6 other brands. The value of the prize, the incentive for people to engage and participate is much, much higher. And then all of these brands are going to help you promote it and post promotion, et cetera. And so the ones that the brand that I want to talk about here, you can see is SocialBee. I think they do a number of things really, really well, but they really understand as a SaaS and partnerships in a way that most other SaaS companies don't understand, because they really do the full range of partnerships in a really big way. And I encourage you, go to SocialBee's website and check out their partner page, and you'll see they've actually got all sorts of different categories of partnerships. They've got their affiliate partnerships, they've got their integration partnerships, but they actually have a whole range. And so this is one example, the Solopreneur Toolkit giveaway, and they do a giveaway. But they're not just giving away their own thing. You can see down here, yes, they're giving away one lifetime plan, and SocialBee is an amazing product. And so that is worth a lot, but also Bonjoro is an amazing product, and Flowdesk and ClickUp and Instachamp and MeetGeek. So cumulatively, what they've done here is create a really high value prize. And then obviously all of these brands were out there promoting it. One of the others.
Sorry, Sven, I wanted to say with SocialBee, did you see them on Instagram as well? They got some influencers as well to promote them on Instagram, and the videos have 1.2 million views.
Yeah, they do it really well. I'm a huge fan, and that's just one of the examples. They take that and then they blow it up. But if you're talking about the millions of views, was their Black Friday deal. So this was the other page that I wanted to get into, or the other example. And I was lucky enough, we were invited to participate with this. But they've got a dedicated Black Friday landing page, and it started off small. They experimented with it. But then they actually, last Black Friday, when Intribe was involved for the first time, there were more than 100 brands out there. And I think cumulatively, when we all promoted this page, I think it went to over 5 million people, this one landing page, and we promoted it multiple times. So 5 million people got it in their inboxes and on the socials. And I think they did use the influencers to accelerate it as well. And so again, SocialBee could have been out there on their own with promoting their Black Friday deal. And I've seen a few other brands actually do a web page like that. I did see that last year, but they had maybe 8 or 10 or 12 brands. SocialBee came out there swinging big, and more than 100 brands. And when you scroll through this page, it's amazing. So yeah, I'm quite a fan. I think they do partnerships well. I think they do the influencer partnerships, as you say. I think they leverage that really well. And it's a lovely product. It's actually the product that I use myself for my social media management. So I'm a bit of a fanboy. I think I'm promoting them more than I am intribe.
You should ask them for a referral fee.
I might point them at the video once it goes live. So I've been talking for a while. I'm conscious of the time. I do want to call out a few interesting tools that help solve this problem. So with the referral programs, there are a lot of referral programs out there. A lot of them are for e-commerce. So, there's a really great one here out of Singapore called Referral Candy, but they're very focused on e-commerce, not so much on SaaS. But a lot of these companies approach referrals in different ways, some in monetary ways, some, buy one, get one. Some are really creative with, their visuals within your SaaS when people actually get there. But UpViral is one that I think is kind of interesting. FriendBuy started out as a primarily a consumer products or a D2C type referral program, but I've seen some SaaS companies use it, and they're the founders. They're a couple of really good guys. Tableau is a new one that I've uncovered. Now they are primarily focused on consumer products, but they are building out and testing with SaaS companies, and they're actually got to set up a deployment for intribe. But they've got an interesting approach to the loyalty program that can maybe also be used for referrals. So I haven't deployed it yet in intribe, but it is really curious to see where they go with it. And I think if you're looking for something new to stand out from other SaaS companies, go check out Pablo. I think that's interesting. When it comes to affiliate marketing software, I really like Redditus. There's a lot of great ones out there. First Promoter has been a go-to for SaaS companies for a while, but Redditus is another one now that's very much specifically built for SaaS. They're not looking for e-commerce companies or direct-to-consumer companies. Obviously, a plug for intribe. Again, we are not an affiliate platform. We're there to help you find all the different types of partnerships that are outside of your network, that are too hard to find on LinkedIn. We're going to make it easy for you to find the right brands to target with basically selecting the search and being able to pick, what type of partnership programs you are and build campaigns around it. Two that I'm going to mention that is, they're not tools as such, but they may be that opportunity to get in on a platform early that I was talking about. Now, Spoutable, so these are two Twitter competitors. Blue Sky is obviously getting a lot of headlines lately because of who the founder is. But Spoutable has been live for a little while now, and I've been using Spoutable. One of the obvious points of being early is that for the first time in my life, I got @Sven as my handle. So, it was very clear that I was a first mover on Spoutable, hoping to get it on Blue Sky, we'll see. But, that's something to check out. If you have been advertising on Twitter as part of your go-to-market, and, Twitter is maybe challenging sometimes these days, go check them out and explore whether it's worth, being a first mover with the advertising and driving content there. And AI, I roll my eyes a little bit. As I said earlier, though, I am a user of ChatGPT. I'm a subscriber. GPT-4 is obviously quite extraordinary, but sometimes I wonder if it's a benefit or, if it's just going to spew out so much content, we're just all going to get lost in the sea of content. But anyway, hopefully there's some tools you haven't heard of before that are worth exploring. What are the key things that I learned as we get towards the end of our time together? Creative marketers tend to win. Creativity in marketing was dampened down for a long time as everybody got so focused on metrics in the SEO world and in the pay-per-click world. But and a lot of brands have forgotten to stand out. One of the things that you do need to be as a brand is you do need to be memorable. There's quite a famous marketing book by Seth Godin called Purple Cow, and the whole point of a purple cow is that it's remarkable. It's hard to forget. It's memorable, and so really try and take a step back with some of the things you learned. See if you can be a bit more creative. One of the other reasons that I really love partnerships is particularly if you're a small company, if you're a solo founder, solopreneur, or just a small but fast-growing SaaS. You often live within your own walls or your own headspace, and partnerships can actually take you out of that. The second point being, what worked in the past won't work in the future. That's kind of stating the obvious. But again, pay-per-click was so powerful for so long that so many people were just focused on that as their primary marketing channel. And we really need to take this time now and step back. Experimentation is still the key, but don't just do the same growth hacking experiments that have sort of become the standard playbook. The next 2 or 3 years with these changes in tracking are really going to require people to think new and think bigger and bolder. Multiply your efforts where you can. Again, leverage. Partnerships can be about leverage. Traditional ways of improving the affiliate program don't work. I've already really gone through that. Offline can cut through. And when I talk about cookies, it's probably taking a slice from the account-based marketing, the ABM people. But honestly, sending a pitch, particularly if you're a SaaS with a bigger LTV, or you've got your subscription payments are on the higher end. Sending your ideal customer profile, your ideal customer, a bag of cookies with a little message, really can actually cut through. And it's one of those things that, again, with the experimentation, take some of it outside of the digital realm, because as the world gets ever more digital, that is the things that people might remember. And here's an example. Allbirds and Shake Shack. This is an older, and obviously this is a consumer partnership. But back then, Allbirds was really kind of the first eco-conscious shoe. And Shake Shack, even though they're upmarket, but it's still a burger chain, which is kind of the epitome of American consumerism, if you like. And when you combine the two as a partnership, it really clashed. But if you have an interest, Google the partnership, Google the results. But the word of mouth was out of this world. They were featured on the evening news, on Good Morning America. It was discussed all over the place, and their social views went through the roof. So again, zigging when others are zagging can be a great tactic once again. So just to wrap up, obviously there are some risks with these things. Diversification, I think, is really, really key. We learned the lesson with Silicon Valley Bank that we should probably have our money spread across 2 or 3 banks now. Bigger companies have done that for a long time, but startups tended to have it all in one bank. And so diversification with marketing is definitely a way to reduce your risk. One of the pitfalls, though, is if you suddenly go after every channel, and try and win on every channel, that's way too much diversification. So, just try and pick the different tactics and experiment. Referral marketing, I talk about it a lot, and I've seen people, go out there and sign up to quite an expensive subscription for referral marketing software. And, they've got 200 people in their mailing list. And they're wondering, why they get such a poor ROI. So you do need to pick your time with some of these things. I'm hugely bullish on brand partnerships. I think if you look at a lot of the real big success stories, the unicorns, all of them employed co-marketing partnerships or brand partnerships, usually quite aggressively. All the corporates do it, but it's not a free ride. They do require work, and you do need to invest in the relationships. Don't fall in love with your first partner. Don't marry them. Date a little first, experiment a little bit. If you're brand new to partnerships, start small. Do a small webinar together. Keep it low risk. And as with a lot of things in startups, if you give first, if you actually approach a partnership with their best interests in mind, you'll get the rewards. It will come back to you. But if you go out there and it's all about me, that's not gonna work so much. So in conclusion, it's not just you. So that's often a good thing to know. It's not that you are necessarily doing anything wrong. Customer acquisition costs are a real problem. They're rising for most companies. Pay-per-click, I think I've said this a couple of times, they were magical for so long, it's hard to let go, but you really need to start looking at it in black and white. What is the data telling you? Can you make improvements there? Probably, but is it worth it, or is your time better off spent, maybe diversifying a little bit? Fragmentation is a massive issue. That's not just a pay-per-click issue. That's just capturing people's attention now is a challenge, and so that's where sometimes the creativity is going to come into it. We're definitely getting saturated by content. It's hitting us from all sides. I'm looking forward to some AI filtering of content. Key message: existing customers are gold. Obviously, not just that they don't churn, that's obviously an important thing, but the word of mouth, and then if you deploy a smart referral program, they're really going to accelerate and bring new customers at a very high ROI. People still take recommendations from the brands they trust. Some of the influencer marketing is seen now as another paid channel. Particularly if it's not done well. But when they trust a brand and they get a referral from another brand, and the brand says, hey, check out our partner, and people still respond to that really well. So, if there was any one thing that I would finish on, in your journey, you need to have a referral program and a partnership program. If you're not adding those to the rest of what you're doing, I think you're missing out.
So you were talking about, I love the strategies you were talking about, but I wanted to ask, you've worked with a lot of SaaS companies, and you were saying you were talking to a lot of SaaS founders, but what do you think of some of the common mistakes that SaaS founders make when they're trying to lower their CAC? You mentioned all the great tips, but what do you think are some of the things some of the common mistakes you've seen?
Look, probably the most common is I've met a lot of founders, and even in slightly bigger companies where there's a VP of marketing or a marketing director that don't understand what the CAC is to begin with. They don't know how to calculate it, or that would be the number one. That would be absolutely the biggest. Now, founders once they're beyond $5,000 RRR, you would hope. MRR. You would hope that they have a handle on CAC and LTV and things like that, but it consistently amazes me how many don't. And as soon as you go one tier down from either the founders or the executive leadership, a lot of marketers don't know it. So even though the executives are looking at it and understanding it, it gets lost in the communication down and the communication up. So, making sure that the key people involved in lowering the CAC actually understand what it is, what makes up CAC, how to calculate it, how to track it. The second biggest thing that I see is, again, this pay-per-click really was magic for a long time, that people don't go in there and actually check their ROI on the pay-per-click component. And because it's just been running for ages, and they tweak it here and there, and they launch a new product, and so then they do the experiment in the new product or in the new search terms or whatever it is, but they leave this other stuff just chugging along, spending money, and then suddenly, over a period of 6 months, somebody decides to have a look and says, oh my Lord, what's going on here? This is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that happening a few times. And the other question I had for you is, how important do you think pricing strategy is in lowering your CAC? And what approaches have you seen that work well?
Which strategy?
Pricing strategy.
So, pricing is just such a long conversation. For 2 years of my life, I was part of the Worldwide Pricing Association. I was a member of Pricing Society. And, there are some really serious pricing people out there that really have a science behind pricing for products and services. In my opinion, with pricing and CAC, it's actually generally my opinion about pricing in general is particularly early stage SaaS companies don't price high enough, and then they don't think about experimenting with pricing enough either. And so often it's copying a competitor, or it's what feels right. Pricing is made up in all sorts of things. So I think pricing is actually worth a whole video. When pricing comes to CAC, I think it's more a conversation of just trying to actually get the pricing right and making sure you experiment. I'm a huge believer in grandfathering in your earliest user base and making sure they're looked after and they don't get any shocks. And I think if you do up the pricing on the early users, you give them plenty of warning and all of these, I guess, sort of logical human things, behaviors. But before you think about pricing in CAC, which is a complicated conversation, I would just ask, is your pricing right? What have you done to validate your pricing? What have you tested, etc.
Yeah, we had a lot of founders who had a lot of talks as well about pricing. Should you change your pricing? How to change your pricing? So you're completely right. It's a whole new, it's a whole talk on its own.
And I don't know if there's any definitive, there's certainly not one way to do it. But I think there are many right ways to do it, and it depends on the different situations. But there are two things that I'm really keen on. One is grandfathering, and two is giving people notice, existing users notice, and probably the third would be you just need to experiment and test it out, and they're for me the big ones. So that's it. I think time-wise, probably a touch long, but hopefully you get some value out of that. I want to really thank Sony and the StartupSauce team for inviting me to be a part of this. I want to thank you for listening. If you got all the way to the end, that's amazing. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me, Twitter, email, and have a great day wherever you are. Thank you very much.